I took a night shift security job last winter because it paid better than anything else I could find at the time. I wasn't excited about it, but I needed the money. The job was simple on paper. Watch a single residential property overnight while the owners were out of town for an extended period. No cameras, no alarms, just physical presence. The house sat alone on the edge of a small, wooded neighborhood. Not rural, not suburban either. Just far enough from everything that it felt disconnected. The owners were an older couple who traveled frequently, and they told me they'd had issues in the past. They didn't go into detail. I didn't ask. My shift ran from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'd park in the driveway, do a walk around every hour, and stay inside the house the rest of the time. I brought my laptop, snacks, and a thermos of coffee. It felt boring more than anything. The first few nights were uneventful. I learned the layout quickly. 2 floors, bedrooms upstairs, living room, kitchen, and a small office downstairs. The basement door was in the kitchen, tucked behind a folding pantry door. I never went down there. I didn't need to. By the 4th night, I noticed how quiet the house was. Not just quiet, dead. No ticking clocks, no hum from appliances. The fridge was unplugged since the owners were gone. The silence had weight to it. Around 1:30 a.m. that night, I heard a sound from upstairs. It was faint, like a single footstep. I paused my movie and listened. The house settled, wood popping slightly, but nothing else happened. I told myself it was temperature change. Old houses make noise. At 2 a.m., I did my walk around. Every door was locked, windows secure. No footprints in the thin layer of frost outside. Everything looked fine. When I came back in, the upstairs hallway light was on. I stood at the bottom of the stairs staring up at it. I knew I hadn't turned it on. I also knew I hadn't been upstairs since my shift started. I called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded wrong in the house, like it didn't belong there. No response. I slowly walked up the stairs, checking each room. Every bedroom was empty. Beds neatly made. Closets closed. Bathroom untouched. The hallway light switch was flipped up. I turned it off and went back downstairs, trying to stay calm. The rest of the night passed without incident, but I didn't relax again. The next night, things escalated. At around midnight, I heard movement in the kitchen. Not footsteps, more like something being shifted. A chair, leg scraping lightly. I crept out of the living room and peeked around the corner. Nothing. The chairs were pushed in. The table was untouched. The basement door was still closed. I checked the entire first floor and found nothing out of place. At 3:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. No notification, just a single buzz. I unlocked it and saw my battery had dropped from 82% to 14%. The charger was still plugged in, but the cable wasn't connected to my phone. I stared at it longer than I should have. I knew I hadn't unplugged it. I started staying closer to the front door after that. On the 6th night, I arrived a little early. The owners were still out of town. But when I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was already on. I hesitated before getting out of my car. I checked my messages. No texts, no missed calls. I convinced myself the timer had malfunctioned. Inside, the house felt wrong. I can't explain it better than that. The air felt heavy, like I'd walked into a room where an argument had just happened. The silence felt tense instead of empty. During my 11 p.m. walk around, I noticed something near the side of the house. Footprints. Bare footprints. They led from the tree line up to the house and stopped right beneath a second-floor window. I didn't follow them. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat with my back against it for a long time. At 1:48 a.m., I heard the basement door open. I didn't hear it creak. I heard the soft click of the latch releasing. Then nothing. I stared toward the kitchen, barely breathing. A minute passed. Then another. I finally forced myself to stand and walk toward the basement door. It was cracked open, just an inch. I didn't touch it. I went back to the living room, grabbed my keys, and sat on the couch fully dressed, shoes on, ready to leave if I had to. At exactly 3 a.m., I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, careful. Bear. They stopped halfway down. I whispered, "I'm calling the police." The footsteps froze. Then they moved back up the stairs. I didn't chase. I didn't look. I unlocked the front door and stepped outside, calling 911 with shaking hands. Police arrived within minutes. They searched the entire house. They found him in the attic. He had been living there. Food wrappers, bottled water, a blanket stuffed behind insulation, a phone charger plugged into an outlet I didn't even know existed up there. When they brought him down in handcuffs, he never looked at me. One officer asked how long I'd been working there. When I told him, his face changed. He said, "He told us he's been here longer than that." I quit the job that morning. A week later, the owner called me. She asked if I'd ever felt like someone was watching me in the house. She said they'd had that problem before. I started driving rideshare part-time during the fall because my hours at work were cut. I mostly worked late nights because that's when the money was better and the roads were quieter. I liked the solitude. I liked feeling like I was moving through the city while everyone else slept. Most nights blurred together. Drunk college kids, airport runs, people glued to their phones. Nothing memorable. That's probably why the night this happened stands out so clearly. It was just after 1 a.m. on a Thursday. I was parked near a gas station on the edge of town when a request came in. Pickup location was a residential neighborhood about 10 minutes away. The name was just a first name, no profile photo. That wasn't unusual. When I pulled up to the address, the house was dark. No porch light, no movement. I sat there for a moment, wondering if it was a mistake. Then the rear passenger door opened. I jumped slightly. I hadn't seen anyone approach the car. A man slid into the back seat behind me. I caught his reflection briefly in the rearview mirror. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hoodie, hood up. His face stayed angled down. "Hey," I said. He didn't respond. I assumed headphones. A lot of people ignore drivers. I pulled away and started following the GPS. The destination was about 20 minutes across town, toward an industrial area with warehouses and distribution centers. The silence felt heavier than normal. About 5 minutes into the ride, I noticed something odd. Every time I glanced in the mirror, his eyes were already on me, not darting away, just locked. I cleared my throat. "You doing okay back there?" "Yeah," he said quietly. His voice was calm, flat. I nodded and kept driving. A few minutes later, I felt movement behind me, the subtle shift of weight, like he leaned forward slightly. I smelled something then, a faint metallic scent. I couldn't place it at first. I cracked my window, pretending it was too warm. We reached a red light near a stretch of road that was usually empty at night. I stopped and checked my mirror again. This time, the seat behind me was empty. My heart dropped so fast, I felt dizzy. I turned my head slightly, not fully looking back yet. Maybe he leaned to the side. Maybe the lighting was weird. Then I felt warm breath near my ear. "I don't like when drivers watch me," he said. I froze. He was sitting directly behind my seat now. I hadn't heard him move. Sorry, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Just habit." He didn't answer. When the light turned green, I accelerated harder than necessary. My phone buzzed with a notification from the app. I glanced down for half a second. The ride status still showed one passenger. The next few minutes passed in silence. I focused on the road, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands hurt. Then I noticed something else. The route had changed. The GPS was no longer directing me to the original destination. It was sending me down a narrow service road that ran behind a series of warehouses. I didn't reroute it. "Hey," I said carefully, "my GPS is acting weird. Is this where you're going?" "Yes," he replied instantly. That made my stomach twist. The road was empty. No streetlights, just my headlights cutting through darkness. I slowed down. "I'm not comfortable going back here," I said. "I can drop you somewhere else." Silence. I checked the mirror again. He was smiling. Not wide, not exaggerated, just enough to be wrong. "Keep driving," he said. I made a decision then. I turned the wheels sharply and pulled the car to the side of the road. I threw it into park. "This ride is over," I said. "You need to get out." For a moment, he didn't move. Then he leaned forward until his face was right beside mine. I saw his eyes clearly now. They were bloodshot, unblinking. "You already drove where I needed," he whispered. I grabbed my phone and slammed the emergency button on the app. The sound startled him. He leaned back slowly. I put the car in drive and floored it. I didn't stop until I reached a brightly lit gas station miles away. I parked under the lights and locked the doors. My entire body was shaking. When I looked in the back seat, it was empty. Police arrived about 10 minutes later. I tried to explain everything, stumbling over my words. They checked the app. The ride had ended early. The pickup address was real, but the destination field was blank. No drop-off location had ever been entered. One of the officers asked me to describe the passenger again. When I mentioned the hoodie and his eyes, the officer exchanged a look with his partner. He asked if I'd smelled anything strange. I told him about the metallic smell. They searched the area behind the warehouses later that night. They found a car, abandoned, driver's door open, blood on the ground near the trunk. They never officially told me more than that. My account was suspended for safety reasons for a week. When it was reinstated, I tried driving again. I lasted one night. Every time someone sat behind me, I felt that breath near my ear. I deleted the app the next morning. I still check my back seat every time I get into my car, even when I know I'm alone. I used to think paranoia was something that only happened after something bad already occurred. I didn't realize it could begin quietly long before you ever understand what's actually wrong. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a newer complex. Nothing fancy, just clean, quiet, and close to my job. I worked a consistent schedule, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and my routine rarely changed. I woke up at the same time every day, took the same route to work, went to the same grocery store on Sundays, and went to the gym 3 nights a week around 10 p.m. That routine is what made everything easier for him. It started with something small. One morning, I left for work and noticed my welcome mat was crooked. It wasn't flipped over or moved far, just slightly off center. I remember thinking I must have kicked it without realizing. I straightened it and left. The next evening, when I came home from the gym, it was crooked again. This time, I knew I hadn't touched it. I checked the hallway cameras through the building's app, but they didn't archive footage unless there was an incident report. Nothing helpful there. I brushed it off. A few days later, I noticed my shower curtain was pulled closed when I knew I had left it open to dry. Another night, my TV volume was set lower than I remembered. Not muted, just lower. Little things. Things that could be explained away if you tried hard enough. Then came the sounds. Around 2 or 3 a.m., I'd sometimes hear soft movement near my front door. Not knocking, not footsteps. More like fabric brushing against the door or someone shifting their weight on the carpet. Each time I checked, there was nothing there. No one in the hallway. No noise. No reason. One night, I pressed my ear to the door and listened. I swear I heard breathing on the other side. I didn't sleep much after that. I started locking my bedroom door. I started double-checking windows. I memorized the normal sounds of the building, the elevator hum, the pipes, the distant traffic. That's when I realized something else. Someone was opening my door. The deadbolt was still locked, but the handle would sometimes be turned slightly downward when I got home. Just enough to notice if you were paying attention. Maintenance had a master key, but they always left notices. I checked my emails. Nothing. One Friday night, I decided to stay home instead of going to the gym. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't change anything else. Around 10:15 p.m., I heard footsteps stop outside my apartment. Then the handle moved. Slowly, I stood in my bedroom holding my breath. The handle stopped. Then there was a soft knock. Not loud, not urgent. 3 gentle taps. I didn't answer. I didn't move. After about a minute, I heard the footsteps walk away. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I found a note tucked halfway under my door. It was folded neatly. Inside, written in shaky handwriting, were 4 words. You weren't supposed to be home. I called the police. They took the note, asked questions, and checked the building. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints they could use. They suggested someone might be playing a prank. I knew better. That night, I stayed at a friend's place. When I came back the next evening, my apartment smelled different. Like someone else's soap. Something cheap and strong. In my bathroom trash can, underneath my own trash, was a used paper towel that wasn't mine. I didn't touch anything. I left again and didn't return until police escorted me. They searched more thoroughly this time. That's when they found it. A loose panel in the ceiling of my bedroom closet. Above it was a crawl space that ran between units. Inside, they found a backpack. Inside the backpack were bottled waters, protein bars, disposable gloves, and a notebook. The notebook was filled with dates and times. My dates, my work hours, my gym schedule. Notes about when my lights went off, when my car was gone. One entry stood out. Friday gym night entry window, 10/5/11:30. That was the night I stayed home. The officer closed the notebook slowly and asked me if I had any idea who might do something like this. I didn't. They checked neighboring units. The man lived 2 doors down. He had been accessing my apartment through the crawl space for months, sleeping there sometimes, watching, waiting. They arrested him that night. When they led him past me in handcuffs, he finally looked at me. He smiled. I moved out the next day. I don't keep routines anymore. I don't go to the same places at the same times. And I never assume I'm alone just because my door is locked.